Rudra Shiva is returning to planet Earth in order to destroy this world and bring about the new fifth world. But you may not know who Shiva is and why he has appeared in the various forms he has appeared, and what caused that. Who was he in the previous world, and who is he going to be in the next world, and how is he going to manifest in this world if he is a god? How is he going to come back to Earth and destroy this world and bring the new one? I'm going to be sharing with you all of that. Stay tuned. I'm sharing with you, this is direct knowledge coming from Shiva himself, coming from the light beings, coming from the gods, and of course, as always, being who I am, I've also done some research, and that fills in the blanks. When I get downloads directly from light beings, sometimes it's hard to put it into human context, so that's what the research helps me do. So this is very powerful. We are entering right now, like in the next hour, as I'm filming this, we are entering into a period of time where the south node of the moon, Ketu, is going to move into the nakshatra called Magha. Magha, among other things, means the throne, and it is in the sign of Leo, and this is where the true power of kingship comes. And we are going to find out that Shiva himself is in fact king of this world, and he has been hidden from the world in terms of his kingship in this world. He will not be in the next world. And we need to find out why. Why was he such a... How did he evolve? Because he started out as this low-level, just crazy god of danger and rage, and turned into an agori, and then turned into this being of light and of peace, and now we see him as this being who sits on top of Mount Kailash and meditates for all souls. How did that happen? Is it just that, people have worshiped gods and they change their ideas about what the gods mean? That's what the academics will tell you. But I'm here to tell you, having spoken with many of the gods and communicated with them, I can tell you that they are people just like you and I, except they live in a higher dimension, and they go through challenges and they grow, and they're here to learn and grow just like you are. Shiva is here primarily. He has one goal, and his goal is to help your soul evolve into an even more powerful god. And so we're going to find out how that happened, how he became king of the earth, how he came to come to the idea of creating the Earth School. What does that mean? And what was his role? And anyway, it's a very interesting subject, but the most important thing to know is that this world is coming to an end very soon. I don't know how soon, months, maybe a few years, I don't know. But it's going to end very soon. And so Shiva wants you to understand his drama, and why he loves you so much, and why this is such an important shift for all souls. So, enough babbling, let's get into it. So, let's get started here. Alright, so, well, first as I think I showed you here, we have these two different Shivas here. We have the one in the third world, which was the world of Atlantis, and he was a very different being. He went through his own transformation in that world, but he was the external king of the entire world, and he was open about it, and people knew who he was. He had a different name then. And then in the fourth world, which is the world we're in now, after the flood, he became this extremely angry looking, frightening, being that looks anything but a king. So how did that happen? Why did that happen? And how did he transform into the being he is? All right, so let's get started. So this is Shiva's third earth reign, meaning that he was reigning over, he was king over the entire earth from the very beginning. But then he actually came down and became part of the earth dynamic when humans started, when God started incarnating in human form. Then he became the king of the world, and that may have started in the way we understand physically, with people walking around in the third world. I'm not married to that, but he was in the third world. He was from, I believe, 11,500 BC to 1900 BC. His name was Pururuvas. Pururuvas, if you look him up, you'll find out he was the first king. He was a demigod. He was half god and half human. And he was king of the earth. And he was, according to the Vedas, the first king of the earth. Now his name, Pururuvas, interestingly enough, coincidentally enough, it also means he who roars. So it's not exactly like Rudra, but it has the same root in it, and it's somebody who's he's a being of sound vibration. So his name is Pururuvas. He was a demigod king of the earth who ruled from Atlantis over a beautiful utopian global society during Earth's last golden age. So the golden age lasted a long time. And for at least the first half of it, if not more, the king was Shiva, was a very happy, peaceful king, and he was able to shine his light over the whole world, and the whole world benefited from it, and everybody was at peace. Now, at this point, I need to back up a little bit. I should have done this earlier, but this is going however it's going. And I have to tell you how he even became king of Earth to begin with. So, before the Earth was formed, there were these beings of light that when I saw them and talked to them, they were simply shafts of different colored light. And they called themselves the Guardians of the Galaxy. I kid you not, Galactic Guardians. And they said that that they had come up with the idea for Earth, and that Earth was going to be a place where the gods could go in order to become even more powerful on a spiritual level. And so this was going to be the most difficult of all of the planets, of all of the schools. And the reason is because it was getting too boring on the other planets. The people weren't being pushed hard enough. They needed more resistance. And so we all came up with this idea. They said I was one of them. And we sat around and we talked about how to make this school of Earth. And so Shiva decided that he was one of these beings of light, and he decided that the Earth should be extremely difficult to the point where souls had to forget who they were, knowing that it might completely disconnect them from their own spiritual essence, that they might get so wrapped up in the avatar, the human avatar, the fictional avatar they create, that they could become completely lost, and that this could be very dangerous and destructive, but the potential for spiritual growth was off the charts. And so he made the argument that this is the way it needs to be, and all of the beings of light. They argued over about, this, that, and the other thing, and it's too dangerous and all that. And then they after eons of meditation and argument and discussion, they realized that Shiva was right. And so they said, okay, we will go ahead and go with your plan. And then they started talking about how to design it and all these other things. And Shiva said, I'm going to go down as one of them. I'm going to incarnate there. He said, you can't do that. You have to be up here with us. And of course, part of his essence would be up there with him. But he said, I have to go down. It's not fair. I can't ask other souls to do what I'm not willing to do. And it has to be just as hard on me as everybody else. So he went down and he was the first. He was going to be the first human, or among the first humans that were ever incarnated, going all the way back to like the Neanderthals and whomever else, up until the present day. And so they all said okay, and then his daughter was a goddess. Her name was Gaia, and she said, I'm going to go down and be the body of the earth. And her father said, no, we're not going to do that. And she said, I have to go down. I have to be there with you, Dad. I love you, and I have to take care of you. And they all agreed. All the other light beings agreed, and so he consented to that, which was very painful for him, but he knew they were right. They all decided to create beings that would be the earth spirits that we call the Lemurians, that we call the inner earth beings, that we call the fairies, that we call the gnomes, pick your name for earth spirits. And that they were going to be the companions of earth and take care of her and love her and protect her, because they knew that her father, that Shiva, was going to go in and out of different modes, and he might not be 100% there. So she needed friends to take care of her. And he also needed beings to take care of him, as well as all other souls that came in. These earth spirits were there to protect the earth and to be helpful to, all positive humans. So now you understand why those are there. So that's the background of it. All right. So then when we get to it, we fast forward here, and he's now incarnated as this demigod on earth, and he's ruling earth from this beautiful utopian society. This is during the first half of the Golden Age. Then he morphs into what I'm calling the false light king. So during the last half of his reign as king of Atlantis, Pururvas has a horrible vision of his people descending into darkness. This creates an obsession in him of finding the incorruptible light. Through spiritual and technological means, he becomes so powerful that he creates unhealthy extreme responses in the people. This results in corruption and war. He is ultimately assassinated, and the flood ends the third Earth experiment. So this was one of the biggest revelations to me when I saw it. By the way, this is why there are so many people who need to believe in the idea of a false god of light. Because what ended up happening is, again, at first he was just this guy. And everybody saw him and everybody loved him. They knew who he was. They knew he was a demigod. They knew that he was hooked up and that he was the connection. He was technically not just the king, but he was the god of the whole world. But they were all very close to him, and they knew exactly what he was doing, and they loved him and respected him, but they knew that they were there for their own beautiful purposes, and his energy was helpful to them. And then he had that horrible vision of everybody on earth getting trapped in this cave and being lost in the darkness, and this tore him up. And so he began just going crazy with his spiritual practices until he became this guy. who was just so full of light and so full of power. In the beginning, everybody liked that about him because he was increasing the energy of the Earth. But as the Earth was moving away from the galactic center, people's minds started going down while their energy was still high, and it created anxiety and all kinds of weird responses in them. And people had these two extreme responses. There were multiple responses. There were people who were still following the true path of their spiritual connection to themselves and to the earth. There were people who were aligning themselves with the king in a positive way. His vision of increasing the power and the energy of the light on earth beyond what was supposed to happen, they bought into that, and they helped him with that. And then the other light beings, as well as the earth beings, and probably the earth herself, started telling the king, hey, you've got to turn this stuff down. You know, we're moving into a different phase now. You have to teach them how to internalize this, how to meditate. You have to help them. You have to guide them. And he said, I'm not letting that happen. I'm not letting them go down. And he even got more powerful. All of the light beings then left, and this actually created all kinds of havoc on Earth. And so the people that were with him, you know, that were working with him, started kind of going a little loopy themselves. But then there was another level of elites that when they looked at him, they didn't see that they could be like him, which was his whole reason for doing that. The only reason that he was seeking to become more powerful and more filled with light, he thought that they knew that that's what he was doing. He thought that everybody understood that he was teaching them or being an example of, you know, you can be like me. And the selfishness in him was that he wasn't allowing them to be themselves. They weren't at his level. Many of them weren't anywhere near his level. He was a demigod king. He had forgotten, you know, that he was Shiva. He had forgotten all of that stuff, and he got lost in all of this. Of course, this was all part of the plan, but nevertheless, that was his failing. That was his experiment. And so the people who didn't feel that they related to him, they first started worshiping him like a god outside of them, like the monotheist god, which was not his intention at all, and he wasn't even aware that that was going on. They started doing that. Then they started feeling like they were being left out, like he was getting more and more powerful, and the world was shifting down more and more, and they felt like he was leaving them. They felt neglected and unseen and unloved, and this was very hurtful to them. And then they became jealous. They became jealous of what they saw, that he had unfair power over them. And what ended up happening, it was like the light came between them. Like here he is and here they are, and then here was, you know, the actual light that he was drawing from. This is where the god of false light comes from. It comes from that. So they felt like he was blocking their ascension. And so they saw him as this evil false being. That's why, you want to know, one of the names for Satan is Lucifer. If you don't know what that means, it's Latin. It means he who is the bearer of light. They remembered that, and it ended up popping up in the language, you know, thousands of years later. So this is where that whole feeling of there's a false god who's a false god of light who's trapping us, and all of that. It's because they got very hurt. Now what ended up happening is everything started coming apart, and when he started losing his power, those people that were jealous of him now and angry with him, they attacked him, trying to get what they felt was his secret magic and his secret technology. That's why the elites are running around doing all this secret satanic stuff. There's a reason why they're doing that. It's coming from back at this time. And when they assassinated him, thinking that they were going to find all of his secret technology and secret magic, they couldn't find it. He actually hid a lot of the knowledge underneath the Sphinx. It's a whole other story. So then they got worse and worse. They fought amongst themselves. They fought against the light beings. They used their spaceships to fight against the ETs, and the High Council said, we got to end this. And so they sent the comet, just vaporized the 2-mile thick ice sheet on the top of the Earth, and then flooded the whole Earth and almost completely, totally destroyed that civilization. And then the New World came into being. So now, what happened to Shiva then? This is where we get into our world and things get interesting. All right, so we know about this guy. This guy ended up becoming this guy. And then that guy had a very tragic fall, and the whole world went through a nasty flood, a world-ending experience, the third world, according to the Hopis. And then the Hopis emerge from a third world to find the king, and there he is. And they call him Masawu. And I don't remember the exact translation, but it has to do with bones and death and ashes and things like that. So they came out of however they got onto the New World, these people who survived, and they found this man sitting by a fire, and he looked extremely frightening. And he was tattered. His clothes were tattered. He was covered in mud, and he was actually burned, and he had like a skull face, and he was extremely frightening. And the only reason that they communicated with him is because he began speaking to them, as they said, as a grandfather. And they sensed his power, and then he got large, and he rose up and filled the whole sky. So they realized, who they were dealing with. They remembered that he was the king of the previous world. They knew that he was what they call the guardian or the landlord of this earth. And so he told them what was coming. And he told them about this because they were Hopi. Hopi in that language means the peaceful people. So these were the people in the middle. They weren't the elites that were working with the king who fell with him, because they fell. All the ones that were working with him, they fell, and they all felt horribly guilty. They knew that they had caused the world to destroy itself. They knew that they were the cause of it. And they weren't the other elite people who were angry at him and resentful and were creating this religion of, God of false light. They weren't those people. They were in the middle. They were just these humble people that didn't go in either direction, and they were just focused on their own spiritual path. And so they recognized and knew who he was. And he gave them two choices, and he said, you can either go the way of the two-hearted, which is what I call cognitive dissonance, which is coming, and that will be the easy way to go. You can go that way, or you can follow the single-hearted path, which is, he's just, live close to the earth and be earth people and take care of earth and just be farmers and don't be violent, stay humble. And if you do that, and he gave them instructions, he says, if you follow my instructions, I will be here with you. By the way, that's exactly what I say to my students. When my students come to me, I give them specific instructions based on them, and I'll tell them, if you follow my instructions, I will be here for you. And for people that don't follow my instructions, I say, I can't help you. I can't, if you're not willing to follow instructions, I literally can't do anything for you, so I can't, you'll have to go on your way. So Masawu did the same thing. He said, if you follow my instructions, my spirit will be here with you. And they asked him, they said, will you guide us? Because they remembered who he was. And this was very, very painful for him. And he said, no, I can't stay here and guide you. This is your path, and you have to live your own path. And he said that because he didn't do that the last time. When he was this guy, he was taking responsibility for other people's spiritual empowerment. He wasn't letting them have their own path, which is why they ultimately felt like he was blocking them, because he was trying to do it for them. And they didn't understand that. And so when the Hopis asked him, would you be our leader, he said, I can't. This is your path, but if you follow my instructions, my spirit will be here with you. And then he gave them instructions and told them about, you all guys know the prophecy of the Pahana, which didn't come because Earth didn't follow the teachings, and so it became so corrupt that there was no Pahana. The Pahana didn't come. So who is coming now is the purifier. So this guy, whoops. So this guy is coming back as the purifier. Now, why does he look like that? Let's take a look now. So before I get into that, so they said, will you stay with us? He said, I can't. You have your own path. He said, but I'm going to take the older brother, which was his human avatar. And he says, he's of the fire clan. He says, I'm going to take him east, and I'm going to teach him his knowledge. And if he can teach the fire people, the fire clan people, how to use sound for healing and other things having to do with language and technology, if he can teach them, and if they can stay humble and spiritual, then I will bring him back to you. And when the two of you meet, you can test each other to see if both of you are doing what you're supposed to do, and then it'll be this beautiful, wonderful heaven on earth again. But he said, but if that doesn't happen, then the Pahana is not going to come back. The white man will come back, and he will bring all kinds of death and disease. And then at the end, I will bring the purifier. And so he explained to them that the purifier was going to be a human being, and that he was going to, first he was going to hollow this person out, get rid of all of his human identity, and open him up so that then Masawu, Shiva, could come down into this person and transform him into the purifier and give him all of his power. And then he would destroy this world and create the next one. It's the same thing that the Taoists say, Jin Kui Di Jun. I'm sure there's other prophecies. A lot of them aren't accurate and have been, I think, distorted over time. I believe that the Taoist prophecy of Jin Kui Di Jun, the sage who is to come, and the Hopi prophecy, my belief is those are the two most accurate, because they completely line up with everything, and they completely line up with the person that's going to be, that's going to house, or the avatar. It's the same person. It's just one is a human projection and one is the god, and the god's going to come down into his own projection. So anyway, so this is why they see this guy. This guy is now going to be the god that shows up in the east. He's going to look like this. And the reason why they saw him this way, covered with mud, tattered clothes, burnt face, looking like a skull, is because he was now doing his spiritual penance. So if you want to know why Shiva went from this guy to this guy, it's because this guy is this guy who's doing a severe spiritual penance, and it's because he knows that he made a huge mistake, and that he was responsible for many deaths and many tragedies. And according to the Hopis, Kiowa, which is the supreme, the source consciousness, they say that being took away this guy's ability to be king. So he was demoted. He wasn't allowed to actually physically be the leader and the king of this earth. It was taken from him. And so as a result of that, this devastated the king, and he also felt incredibly responsible, deeply guilty. He had his own stuff he had to work through. So he then became this guy. So he said goodbye. He told them all the things I told you that he said. And he said goodbye to them, and he took off to the east with his avatar. And then he shows up in the historical record. He finally shows up in the Indo-European people. Now I'm saying that the Indo-European people are the Fire Clan. And all of the descendants of the Indo-European people, all of them. Not just the white people or every single one of them. The East Indians, the Slavs, the Celts, the Germanic tribes, the Hittites, the Phoenicians, all of the people who were Indo-Europeans, those are the people that he's going to. So he's showing up to do his job to teach them. Now he tries to hack this. And the way he tries to hack it is by trying to educate them so that when the Europeans are destined to come and meet the Native Americans, that they'll be able to, create this beautiful, peaceful world. But that wasn't guaranteed. So he becomes this god. He shows up. And again, he can't be king. That's been stripped of him. But he's still responsible. He's still responsible for all of the people that come to the world, because this is his design. So he is responsible to host them, to help them, and to train them and teach anybody who wants to learn. And he hopes against hope that he can reverse the damage he's caused and create a fourth world that's beautiful and full of peace and love. That wasn't in the cards. He knew that there was a possibility that wasn't going to happen, but he tried against all odds to make that happen. And so that's why the Hopi and the Taoists have that prophecy about the sage who is to come and the purifier and the Pahana. That was Shiva trying against all odds to fix what he broke. But he still has this spiritual penance, and so he becomes the first Aghori. The Adi Yogi, the first yogi. And so he creates this spiritual path of not having any possessions, everything opposite of what he was. When he was here and he had all this wealth and he had all this power, and when he was this guy and he had tons of power and wealth and technology and all that, he now has to purge all of that. And so this is why he's associated with burial grounds and smashans, which are cremation grounds. This is why he's associated with that, because he would sit there and watch, and he would realize and remember that that's the most important thing, that the spirit is the most important thing and nothing else. And so then he tries to teach that. So he starts off as a spirit, as a god. He's angry, he's mournful, and so he gets the name the Roarer, Rudra. So after this guy, he becomes this guy, and when he gets to the Indo-European people, he's now Rudra, the Howler. He emerges from the third world as a dethroned king, doing severe spiritual penance for causing the flood event, ending the third earth. Taiwa. Shiva has a higher self, by the way, we all do, which is Taiwa. Taiwa dethroned him for his corruption. And so he began his fourth world incarnation as a dangerous, frightening nature god. So he's still there, but this is the best he can do, and it represents his rage at what happened, his rage at the corruption. He's got to work through all that. He's got to do all of his own spiritual work and his spiritual penance. So in the beginning, he's seen as this very frightening, dangerous being. And he could either, shoot you with his arrow and make you sick, or he could cure you. So he was very reactive. And if he saw anybody acting out of that old mindset, he might strike you with an illness to get you to pray so you would come out of it. And then if you did, he would come and heal you. So that's who he was in the beginning. Rudra was somebody that you prayed to so that he didn't come after you. And so that's the reason why. So he didn't just show up there, he showed up in other cultures. The one that is also very clear is Odin. Woden. So just to let you know, this is the same deity. And I can tell you this from years and years of research in the language. It's not just me coming up with some cool idea. I researched it for years. And in the Indo-European language, there's a word for terrifying. And the root of it is ug. And so Odin is called Ug, which means terrifying. His horse is Yggdrasil, the terrifying one's mount, his horse. And one of the names for Shiva is Ugra, terrifying, horrifically frightening. So we don't see this, but when I did research into Odin, Odin looked a lot more like this guy. He was called the Hanged God. And, he was seen lots of times, he would be hanging from trees. And, of course, one of his eyes, he had plucked out one of his eyes. And Woden means the fury of shamanic initiation. So he was a furious god of spiritual transformation, which meant that's what he was doing for himself. He plucked out one of his eyes and put it in a bowl of water so that he could see. He sacrificed his own eye so he could see. He sacrificed himself on the tree of life. He sacrificed himself, to his corrupted ego, to his spiritual ego. And that is what gave him the ability to become king of the gods. Rudra was not king of the gods either. The king of the gods was Deus Pita, and then after Deus Pita it was Indra. And Shiva didn't become king of the gods until much later, and that's because of what he accomplished in his spiritual penance. Now he's doing this with people. He's not doing it alone. He's doing his own work, but he's working with people and teaching them along the way, because every human is responsible as well. The world fell because humans became corrupt. And so he's doing this with them, and those that feel that come and do the practices with him. And as a result, they awaken as well. So it's this path, what we call the left-hand path of horrible self-sacrifice for the purity of the spirit. So Woden, he who is filled with shamanic fury. Masawu appears in the fire clan as the hanged god, he who sacrifices himself. And quote in the myths it says, screaming he takes up the runes, which are the mysteries, also the language, because he's a god of frequency, of sound. So the runes are spoken, they're chanted, they're sounds. So he, in both traditions, in the Vedic tradition and in the Germanic tradition, he teaches people the mastery of the secret sounds. It's the frequencies, which is what he's going to use to destroy this world. It's going to be destroyed through his frequency. And I'll tell you exactly what that frequency is. So he says, screaming he takes up the runes, and he does this to teach humans how to awaken. So a lot of people conflate Odin's sacrifice on the tree with Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. And this had to have been at least 25, 30 years, maybe, I don't know, something like that. And I was just getting into all of this, and I was in a shamanic dream state, and I reached out to Odin and I said, hey Odin, what is the difference between Jesus' sacrifice on the cross and your sacrifice on the tree of life? I didn't expect an answer. to my absolute shock and surprise, this booming voice came back from within me and said, Jesus was a coward. He did not have the strength to allow people to come to their own enlightenment. He said, I taught people through my own sacrifice how they can achieve. Sounds a lot like this guy, right? This guy is doing the same thing. It's the swan song of this guy. This is what Odin said to me. And he went on and he started talking about, look at what Christians have done to the world. And he said, look what Jesus has done to these people. They don't have any power within themselves. They treat themselves like garbage in front of their false god. They don't have any self-empowerment. They don't do anything for themselves. They don't understand that they can achieve enlightenment. He went on and talked like that for me for, it felt like hours. And I wrote a book about it. Odin says Jesus was a coward. You can find it you can just type that in. Odin says Jesus was a coward on Amazon. You'll find that book there if you want to read it. So that's who, this guy. That's who this guy is. And so after he sacrifices himself to himself, then this grants him title of King of the Gods. So this is how Odin becomes King of the Gods. It wasn't his plan. He wasn't doing it to become King of the Gods. But as a result of that, of course, the gods gave him the kingship. Before that, he wasn't the king. The person that was king before him was Tyr. And then Odin became the king of the gods because of his spiritual sacrifice. And so he doesn't become king of the world again. He's just now king of the spiritual path. And now he can do some work. Now that he has, through his sacrifice, he has redeemed himself. He's also taught people, which was his whole reason was to teach human beings how to become gods, more powerful gods. So now he has that. And people who come to him and worship him are going to learn how to become like him. So now he has a path to try and fix the corruption and the violence in his people, the Indo-European people, specifically the ones in northwestern Europe. And before he can get past this stage where he is this gaunt guy who smells like death, who's hanging from trees, who's the god of the hunt, before he can completely get out of that, unfortunately, people abandon him for the Roman Christian tradition, and they abandon him for the white Christ. And so that's when Western European people stopped their spiritual progression, and you know the rest of the story. They became even worse. They became more corrupt, more violent, more spiritually bankrupt, and by the time they got to the Americas, they were a real big problem for the whole world, and they're a big problem for the whole world today. Now those people have been overtaken by a whole other group of people, which I'm not allowed to talk about, but you can fill in the blank. Those people have those same people. These are the same people who conflated this guy. Well, not this guy. They conflated this guy with Lucifer. Lucifer means he who bears light. So, ironically, they are still trying to worship this being that they're angry at, who they think blocked them from the light. And so they're lost in their own religion, their own false religion of their own making. So when the purifier gets here, he's going to have words with them spiritually. They're going to have to face that. He's going to have to fix that. that he's partly responsible for that. Okay, so all right, so now we're up to speed here. So now, unfortunately, he ends up having to leave his Fire Clan people in Western Europe. This was extremely saddening for him and very frustrating, but they made their own choice, and he was very clear when he told me. He said that was their choice. They chose the White Christ over me, and everybody has the right to make their choice, so I let them have it. And he took his power away, his spiritual power away. And I have always said, and I still mean it and believe it, that if Christianity had not taken over Western Europe, that Western Europe would have evolved into the same kind of religion and society that Vedic society did turn into. Now, of course, they're not perfect either, but they came a lot closer. So now we go to the next story where Shiva is now working with the only people left on the planet among the Fire Clan, the Indo-European people who are still working with it. Kundalini is fire, in case you didn't know. So that's why you don't find Kundalini practices anywhere else in the world. You find it in India because the East Indians are Fire Clan people. And this was Odin, he who is filled with the shamanic fury. Even there's the Celtics have that phrase, a fire in the head. They're talking about Kundalini rising into the pineal gland. So at least he had some people that still he could work with. So let's pick up the story there. So after he leaves Europe, Western Europe, then he goes and works with the Vedic people, who end up becoming the Hindus. Oh, I got a little ahead of myself. So he works through this guy, and he becomes Shiva. So he goes from Rudra to Shiva, and so Shiva then calms down. So when he's first Rudra, he's this guy. He's just this Agori covered with ash and living in graveyards, and he's just full of fury, and he's frightening and intense. But if you're able to handle him, he will teach you the deepest knowledge, and of course teach you the fire of Kundalini and mantras and all those other things like that. So that's what this guy goes off to do, right? And so he ends up becoming this guy. And then after thousands of years of the Vedic people, Vedic Hindu people, worshiping Shiva, doing the practices, doing the mantras, doing all the rituals, then he evolves. And he evolves into this being we know now, who sits on the top of Mount Kailash, and he's in deep meditation. And now he's gotten to the point where he has his wife Parvati and his son Ganesha. So let's talk about them for a second. So before, he's just this guy, right? And then now we see him as this guy. A big change. So one of the changes is it made him so happy. Made him so happy that he could do some good with all of this and help people find what they had meant to find, which was to find their soul and to find their true essence and to find peace within and know that their soul is within. What Masawu told the Hopi people is, he said, find the center. And they walked around for thousands of years in circular motions until they ended up right where they are now. And the meaning behind that was to find your center. And so, Shiva had to go and work with the Fire Clan people, and the only people left, of course, were the Hindus. And they have been doing this for thousands and thousands of years, and this has given him tremendous peace and joy. And he's seen that there is a huge amount of people, and it's spread all over the world. You know, the Hindus spread yoga, and you know, there are people all over the world, including myself, that aren't from India, that worship Shiva, and have gained peace and awakening from that. So I can tell you that he has incredible gratitude for those people, because they kept him alive. And when they would chant his mantras and his names, and they would do his practices, it brought him back and awakened him out of this state where he was in just this horrible state of, you know, going into this deep, you know, wounded place where he had to heal himself, and he couldn't do what he wanted to do on Earth. He had to go off and do that. So let's talk about this. So Parvati, he reunites with Parvati, which is the Earth. So technically, the Earth is his daughter. And when he lost himself, he lost his connection with her. That's why he covers himself, you know, with mud and ash. He does that because it's like it's his daughter, and he's trying to get back to her. He's covering himself with that, and it's more than just him humbling himself. It's, you know, he's crazed, trying to connect back to the daughter that he loved, and he, you know, had to disconnect from her, and so he's asking for her to ground him, and like she said, she would protect him. So that's what he's doing with that. That's why he's covered with all. That's why he hangs out with corpses. You know, Odin too. Odin hung out with corpses because corpses were in the earth, and he was watching the earth, his daughter, you know, take their physical body and transform it, and that's why they do all of that. That's why he did that. He was deeply saddened for the pain that he caused, and that was one of the ways that he mourned. So Parvati is technically not his daughter. Parvati is his consort. But what happens is that he's up there he's now gotten to this place where all of these people are doing these practices, and they're meditating, and he is now able to meditate for them. So he goes on top of the most powerful mountain where, you know, electromagnetic energy. By the way, there's a whole city underneath that mountain. I mean, if you go digging in there, you won't find it. There's a whole city of beings in there. There are these monks that are going around in a circle underneath this energy that goes up from Mount Kailash, that goes all the way up into the sky, and there's a ET spaceship that's, you know, there's this whole thing. And I've been there, and by the way, Babaji has a close connection with all of that. I saw him there as well. I've been there in my meditations, and I've seen all of this. And I've seen Shiva sitting on top of that mountain meditating, and he's meditating for all of the people. He's meditating for their souls. And so when you meditate, you connect with him, and he's able to be there with you, and he's able to do his job. This is how he rules the earth now. That's his throne. Nobody sees him. Although, interestingly enough, apparently people who try to climb that mountain, all kinds of really crazy things happen. And that's why the Chinese government won't let anybody climb that mountain, because so many, like, people will, like, age 20 years, you know, things like that. They'll be gone for 20 minutes and they'll come back and they'll be 20 years older. And crazy stuff like that. So anyway, so now that he's been able to reconnect with people and reconnect with people on Earth and do his job, he's doing this. Is this it? No, he's doing this, but instead he's doing it on Mount Kailash, and he's doing it the right way this time, and he's doing it with help from higher dimensional beings that are working with him, and he's now taking. He wasn't taking any advice when he was this guy. He wasn't taking any advice because he thought he knew better than everybody else, and now he is. He's listening to everybody, anybody that comes to him, spiritual beings that come to him with advice. He's listening to them. So, sorry for my emotions. So that's Parvati. So Parvati finds him. She is the daughter of the mountain. Her father's name means mountain, I think. I think her name means mountain. She's the daughter of that. And so she meditates, and in her meditation she sees Shiva naked and sitting on top of the mountain Kailash and just deep in meditation. And she can't get him out of her mind. She dreams about him. He's always in her head. So she takes off and she climbs the mountain to go be with him. And he's so lost in his meditation because, again, his entire reason for being is to help all souls achieve their awakening. And so he's just completely lost and devoted in that. And she tried everything. She tried meditating with him. She tried doing everything. And she then called the god of lust, I forget his name, the equivalent of Cupid in the Vedic tradition, and said, wake him up. So sure enough, he wakes him up, and Shiva wakes up. He's got morning wood, and he wakes up and he's like, what the hell? He's pissed. He's furious, and he sees this woman and he sees this god, and of course he knows exactly who the god is. And when he looks at any being, his third eye opens, and that third eye hit the god of love and just vaporized his head. And Parvati screams in horror, and she says she's crying because she's now responsible for this god of love's death, because she knew she screwed up. She knew that was going to happen. In hindsight, she realizes of course that was going to happen. So she feels horrible. She feels guilty for disturbing Shiva in his meditation, healing the world, and she feels horrible for being responsible for the death of the god of love. And so she begs Shiva, with tears coming out of her face, she begs him, please bring him back. This was my fault. I'm so sorry. He didn't deserve this. Please, please, please. And Shiva looks at her and sees her weeping for another being, and that tears him up inside, and he falls madly in love with her. So of course he brings the god back to life, and they become married, and they have this whole thing when they create the earth, etc., all kinds of stuff. And they have a child, Ganesha. As you know, Ganesha is a human being with the head of an elephant. So the story behind that is that they're married now. Shiva goes off to meditate. He says, I'm going to meditate for a while. She goes, okay, I'll see you soon. And he takes off, and he goes into meditation, and he's gone for thousands of years. And she gets furious. And so she says, well, I'm just going to create my own friend, my own son. So she takes part of her body, which is the earth. So she takes the earth and she forms this being who is incredibly powerful. He's made just of earth. So he doesn't have a father, it's just his mother. And then she's still angry and furious, and so she tells her son, go stand outside my home. I'm going to take a bath. And so this enormously powerful earth being is standing there. And Shiva comes back. Perhaps he knew what was going on. Shiva comes back, and he comes waltzing back to his home where his wife is. And standing outside is this extremely powerful god. And he says, "You can't pass." Shiva goes, "Yeah, but it's my house." And this god says, "I don't care. I don't know you. My mom's taking a bath. She told me to keep everybody away. You don't get to come inside." So he's like, "What?" So all of the other gods, Vishnu and everybody else, show up and they say, "Shiva, come on, man. Pull up your nutsack. You can't let them get away with this. You can't let him do this to you." He says, "But it's her son. I can't kill him." He said, "You can't let him get away with this. The whole universe will come apart. You can't do it." So, sure enough, he opens up his third eye, and energy comes out, vaporizes this enormous child god's head, boom, falls over. And of course, the moment that happens, there's this shriek that comes out of the bathtub. And she comes rushing out there, dripping with water. "What's going on?" And he says, "I had to. He wouldn't let me in my house." And she says, "You better find a head for him right now, mister, or you and I are going to be in really big trouble." So he goes, okay. So he goes off and he finds an elephant that's dying, I believe. Takes the head of the elephant, puts it on this god's body. You know, they see him as a little kid, but he's actually a huge. That's why they show him having a big belly. He's just huge. He's just this huge being, and he has this elephant's head on. And so now he really is the child of Shiva and Shakti, because he's got the wisdom of Shiva and he has the passion of his mother, the earth. Now, this is also the god Ketu. And this is interesting because Ketu is technically the son of Shiva. So I'll read what I got here. So Mahadeva Shiva, the happy Shiva, from 300 AD, that's when he shows up until who knows when. So after almost 13,000 years of continuous worship, Rudra is appeased as a result of the true-hearted people continuously practicing the original Fire Clan spiritual sciences. He reunites with his Earth Shakti, and Ketu is transformed into a benevolent god of beginnings, as opposed to the god of death that he is in his purest form. So now Masawu has redeemed himself and will once again rule the fifth world, but this time he will share his power equally with all those who inhabit the fifth world, and it will be balanced because he will have his Shakti with him, and he will have his son who, instead of being what Ketu is now, which is now we're going to feel his effect. He's now this benevolent god of beginnings, god of children. So it represents a new beginning. So we're entering into Magha Nakshatra, and it is my belief that Shiva's avatar, the purifier, the sage who is to come, it is my belief that he will be activated at this time. And this activation, if my Vedic understanding is correct, it will happen between now and December 5th is when Ketu leaves Magha Nakshatra. It will intensify because as it gets to Magha Pada 1, that is the direct window to the light beings, the Pitris, and this is where the true king resides. So if there is going to be this being that comes, this human avatar that's downloaded into him the power of the purifier, it very well will happen at this time. I can tell you that since we've started moving into that nakshatra, the energy for me has gone through the roof. And so this is where I'm getting all this information. So did I talk about everything I wanted to talk about? So I'm here to tell you that now I understand a lot more about Shiva, and Shiva benefits from those who worship him. So let me tell you what Shiva's main goal has always been and is still. His main goal is to give you complete and total autonomy. That the exact opposite of the monotheist religions where God stands up there and points at you and commands at you and you have to please him. The exact opposite. Shiva is only interested in worshiping your soul so that your soul will become God within you. And that you have complete autonomy to be whatever gives you the greatest joy. And that's what this next world will be about. And so, like the Hopis say, he's the landlord, he's the caretaker. He's going to technically rule that world, but he's going to rule it not with any law or with telling people what to do. It's going to be, he is going to create a frequency that will allow people to live their highest self, their greatest joy, their truest, most empowered God self, so that he can watch them blossom and that he can worship them. So he's just here to help. They call him Lord of the Earth, but that's like when you go to somebody's house and you're a guest in their house, they're the Lord of the Manor, but they're there to help you. They provide the house for you, they give you the blankets and the food, and they take care of you. So that's what Shiva has always wanted, and that's what will be in the next world. And so this god Ketu now, which is also Ganesha, this god Ketu is going to bring, because Ketu doesn't have a head, he's going to take off the head of all of the ruling elites, those who rebelled against him and falsely understood what he was doing and tried to become false gods. You know, the thing about narcissists is they always project on others what they're doing. So this whole worship that, you know, there's a false god of light that's trying to trap you, that's a projection. Either from a victim standpoint or from a narcissist standpoint who are worshiping Lucifer, the bearer of light. It's all projection. And it's outside of you. Whereas what Shiva's bringing is what is inside of you. All right, so if you want to empower the new avatar who is being activated, there are ways that you can do that. So I was given, and or however you want to look at it, I created, and I got Shiva's blessing, and it was activated. A new mantra, which is Om Maghagoraya Nama. That thing over the A makes it long. So it's Om Maghagoraya Nama. Om Maghagoraya Nama. And it means I call the name of the all-powerful destroyer of fear. So I've got a video, I'll put a link in there telling you, how to follow that path if you want to. Nobody's required to do anything. But if you want it, if you want to face and overcome fear, which will be very helpful when the light is released, people are going to be afraid. They'll be really afraid to look at themselves. So this whole path of Shiva is looking at yourself. And so if you want to be able to be fearless about that, and when the light comes, it'll just be this beautiful wave of light that takes you to the next world, that mantra will take you there. And the next thing that I recommend is that you, in whatever way you want, I've got a video here, I'll put a link, where the Vedsar Shiv Stotram, if you read that, that will help Shiva's avatar to wake up. Because the things that are said here about who this being is, it's waking him up to his Shiva consciousness, and it will bring him, literally bring Shiva down to earth. So if you want that, and you want to empower the vessel, his vessel that is being activated now, then go find Vedsar Shiv Stotram. You can take a screenshot here. Those are the first 4 verses. And then there's 4 more. And listen to it. There's songs. You can go listen to people singing it. It's really beautiful. If you want to. There's nothing required of anybody. That's what you should know. Nothing is required of you except to be your honest self. And if you want to shift, then you will have to face your true divine self, which means you'll have to die to your 3rd dimensional ego and your attachments, which might be very challenging and painful. But remember what this guy has done. Oh, that's not him. Sorry, I'm somewhere else. Remember what he did. He was this, and then he was that, and then in order to fix the problem, he faced himself. So this is him facing himself, and he went through that. You don't have to go through that level of self-awareness. He's doing that for himself and for you, but he can teach you how to do it and gain power from it. So anyway, I'll leave it there for now. Yeah. So that's it for me. You know what to do if you want to support the channel. There's links. You know where to go. Just go to the links and do the thing. My apologies for not making the meditation last night. I did the meditation, but I did it without you. And maybe it was good. It was the single most powerful meditation I've ever had. My head almost completely came off my shoulders. So maybe I was supposed to do it alone. But we're going to keep doing the live guided interdimensional meditation, and we're going to bring this being to the earth, and we're going to use and channel his power to destroy this 3rd dimensional world and bring the new world. And let's do this so that Shiva can finally just live out his days with his family and have his own peace and happiness. I love you, my friends. Thank you for listening to all of this. I'm here for any of you. If you need me, you know where to reach me. I respond to everybody who is respectful and honest. If you're disrespectful or inauthentic, you'll get a different response from me. But if you're honest and respectful, I'm here for any and all of you in any way that I can. It's the only reason I'm on this planet. Please be good to yourselves. I will see you all very, very soon.